In this course, I'm going to show you how to easily search and scrape, among other things, online for information and have that knowledge readily available for LLMs to consume. The simplest and easiest way to do this is with Firecrawl. We'll have a total of 13 projects, including a CrewAI Automation and a local Perplexity. All this code will be in the GitHub link in the description, and I'll explain how things work as we go along. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started with step one. Well, we're going to start this course off with the simplest endpoint, and that is scrape. It allows us to fetch content from a single page in a chosen format, HTML, Markdown, plain text, or JSON. It's helpful because, sometimes you only need one page's content, such as like a blog post or a tutorial article. It's simple, fast, and is structured. So what can it do? Well, it can pull the full article content, title, description, and any metadata from basically any public web page. And so in order to get started, we need to get a Firecrawl API key. So you're just going to go to firecrawl.dev. If this is your first time here, you get 500 credits for free. So you'll just sign in. Then after you sign in or sign up, you go to your dashboard right here, and you'll see some page like this. I created a separate account to kind of for this course. So what you'll see here is you have your API key right here. You can always get another one, but we'll just use this one for now. And then one of the more important aspects of this is the playground over here on the left. So in this playground, it has a few endpoints that you can test. So the first one is the single URL, the scrape endpoint. So I'm just going to type this in. So I'm just going to type that URL in, and then I'm just going to simply run this. And then this won't take it long at all, and it's basically going to go ahead and give us the markdown of that full page for Firecrawl documentation. So here is the full markdown of that single page. Well, let's go ahead and start coding this. So this is going to be our first project, and I just created a file called sync scraper. Now, what you'll need to do is just create a virtual environment. I'll have kind of the instructions in the description. But once you've done that, we need to install Firecrawl's Python library. So it's going to be pip install Firecrawl -p-py. Okay, I already had installed, so that was quick. All right, we're just going to go through the imports. I only have a couple. So we first need to import Firecrawl app. We're going to import the load.env library so that we can import our environment variable, because we don't want that hard-coded into any of our files, because we're going to be using this for quite a few different files. So we import OS, and we're going to call the load.env so we can load the .env variables. The next thing we need to do is just kind of instantiate the actual app. And we do this by saying app equals Firecrawl app, and then we give it the API key, and we're going to go ahead and get that environment variable for our Firecrawl API key. There are a couple ways to get our API key. You can choose get code, and it'll give you the actual code that you could use, although I've noticed a couple issues with that, which is why I'm not actually using that right now. But if you go to the overview, and this is the main page, you can just go ahead and copy the API key. We can come back to cursor, and then you just create a .env file like this over here. And once you create that, then you'll add in a Firecrawl_API_key, and then you'll just paste in your Firecrawl key right here. All right, now let's go ahead and scrape a URL. So we'll go down the next line. We're going to say app.scrape URL. There's quite a few methods that we can use here, but just scrape URL is the main one. And then we want to give it the URL. You can see it's actually already given it to me. So we're going to say https://docs.firecrawldev. Okay, so this is the URL that we want this to execute. And then we can give it like formats that we want. So formats, we're going to go ahead and give it Markdown and HTML. Okay, so now, we're going to say result equals app.scrape URL. So now what we're just doing is we're calling, this is what end up calling the endpoint, but it's in a Python library to make it easier for us to use. Now if I just type print result, we can go ahead and run this. So let me open up the terminal. Let me bring this up a little bit. Then we can just say Python 3 or Python, depending on what version you have installed on your computer. But Python 3, and I'm just going to say _01 sync scraper. Just a friendly reminder, if you see a white dot at the top of your file, that means you forgot to save it. So let's run this again. And this should only take a few seconds, and it's going to give us the markdown, or all the results from this URL. And here it is. This is actually giving us, this is a lot of information. We don't really need all of this. So let's go ahead and tidy up a little bit. Okay, that was really messy, and I didn't even really go through the output, right? Because it's just so much, it's hard to really notice that, but it printed a lot of things out. So instead, what I want is I just want the title, description, the credits used, and then just the first 500 characters of the markdown. I don't want the HTML, I just want the markdown. So now with this, then if we go ahead, and I'm going to run the same file again over on Sync Scraper. Instead of printing out everything, it should go ahead and just print out the 4 different things that I'd mentioned here. Okay, so the title is Quick Start Firecrawl. Here's the description. We used 1 credit, and then this is the first 500 characters of Markdown. And this is really nice because then when you have this Markdown, then you kind of have something LLM ready, so you can pass this information to create a summary. You can have it give you the key points, action items, or whatever of this web page. Okay, and what I'm also going to show you is I created another file for async scraping. And how this works is it's generally the same. We create the Firecrawl app, give it the Firecrawl API key. I have a batch scrape job, and I call app.async batch scrape URLs. Okay, this basically means that this allows, I went ahead and did this way for batch scraping so that you can just put multiple URLs in here if you would like. And then what I just have a simple print job, but how this is going to work is I'm going to have this while loop where I'm going to get the status of the batch scrape job, and if that is if that's still not completed, then it's going to keep going in this loop. So I'm just going to print it just so we can see. But if it ends up being completed, then we're going to break, and it's going to do this every 10 seconds. And then once it's done, I'm just going to take that batch scrape status, which will have a data property, and that data property is what has the markdown, and we're going to go ahead and print that out. So I'm going to run O2 async scraper. As you can see here, this printout here is saying it's successful, but the status right now is scraping. This is currently using 1 credit, and just gives you a couple information here. And now it's done, right? So between that and the next 10 seconds, here's all the markdown from the Firecrawl docs.dev. And while we're here scraping, I have something I really want to show you because I think this is really interesting and awesome, is that you can scrape with parameters. What do I mean by that? Well, if we go and take a look at this code, of course, again, the setup is the same. We instantiate the Firecrawl app, but I have a class here. So I have a Pydantic class with a bunch of different properties in here. So maybe I want to get the company name. You want to know if it's open source. You maybe want to try and see if there's an email contact, there's a GitHub, something with GitHub, some pricing, etc. Okay, and so then I just have this JSON config. All right, this is something coming from Firecrawl. So you have a JSON configuration, and we give it the schema, extract schema. So these are kind of properties that we want to get from a URL. So then I have the app.scrape URL, which is the first one we did. I have a different URL here. So this is from vercel.com. So this time I want the format to be JSON. I'm going to pass in the JSON config, which really is just this schema right here. And then only main content is false, and I have it set to a timeout. Now, basically what this is going to do is it's going to go ahead and scrape this URL, but it's going to return this in this extract schema. So it's going to try and fill in all the properties of this extract schema. And then with that, we can print out just that JSON. Okay, so this is a little bit different. We can scrape a URL, but then have structured output. And that is really awesome. So let's go ahead and give this a try and see how it looks. I'm going to say Python 303 scrape with params. Okay, this is going to take a few seconds, but again, it's going to try and fill in all of this information from vercel.com/docs. And as you can see here, it's done. And then as you can see here, we have company name. It is open source, supports SSO. These are all properties that you can see from the extract schema or the app or the structured output that we wanted. So also here is documentation URL, here is pricing URL. So these are things that it had found from scraping. Let's just go ahead and verify. We can go ahead and go to this vercel.com pricing link. And here you go. Here is the pricing link that it found. And this is really, I think this is very interesting because if you're looking for specific things, as long as they are actually available from scraping, then it can put them in a structured output. So then you can only get what you really need. And I think that just really helps out. Now for the next endpoint, we have crawl. This is going to allow us to collect entire websites for the most part. So what is it? Well, this endpoint lets you recursively crawl pages starting from a root URL and gather content across the site. It's helpful because if you may need to collect entire knowledge bases, documentation, etc. with linked content. This means that we can crawl a website up to a defined depth or a total count. We can kind of, with parameters, set exactly what we need. So it will automatically follow internal link, fetch the HTML markdown or JSON content. Okay, so I have a new Python file called 04. This will be the fourth file that you'll see in GitHub, crawl.py. And the setup is a lot of this is the same, Firecrawl app.env, etc. Now, the next thing though is we're going to use the crawl endpoint. So how this works, so then what we need to do is we can say crawl results equals app.crawl URL. The first thing we need to do is give it the URL. Of course, we're going to this time we're going to use docs.crewai.com. You can limit the number of web pages that it crawls. So just for this case, for one time, I'm just going to say 5 so that we don't have to crawl everything all at once. And then we can give it what are called scrape options. So in this case, we can say scrape options equals, and as you can see, I imported scrape options object or class up there. So I'm going to paste that in here. And then from here, there's a couple things we can give it. For our purpose, we're just going to say formats equals, and then just give it markdown. So you can give it a list of different formats that you want, but I only care about markdown right now. Then let's just go ahead and print crawl result. Let's go ahead and test this out. So I'm going to open up the terminal and then we'll say Python 3. And by the way, a shortcut that you should know for cursor is, well, for Mac, it's Command J. Windows might be Control J, but that just opens and closes the terminal. So that's why I did that so quick. So Python, we're going to say 04 crawl.py. Now it should, starting from docs.crewai.com, it'll limit to just 5 URLs, but it will go ahead and internally go to each of those URLs from that root URL. Okay, so finished crawling. What I really just want to show you really quick is this is a lot of information. We don't need all of this, right? I'm going to scroll all the way down. And what I actually ended up doing, just so you can see, is I got the source URL from, they give you a Firecrawl document and as a response. So what I did is I got that and I got, this is the original docs.crewai.com. Then you can also, then what it did is went to this one, enterprise introduction, and then CrewAI.com examples, and then it got an example, right? So it even though I limited it to 5, it actually only has a total of 4 that it crawled, and that's okay. Sometimes it gets more, sometimes it doesn't, but it also depends on your root URL. Now this root URL has more, but that's okay. What I was able to do is it went through all of them and it got me examples from it got all the markdown from all of those URLs. Then we could go through each one as a Firecrawl document and get the markdown and then do whatever we wanted for them. This makes it really easy to crawl all of the websites. Now, this does use more tokens because per URL that you are crawling is a credit. So this one, in this case, in this instance, would have used 4 credits. And now I'm going to show you the async version of this, which is very similar to what we did the async scrape. Everything's the same, except we're going to call app.async crawl URL, give it crewai.com. We can maybe give it a limit of 5. These are the scrape options. We actually, what I did is I ended up changing this to only main content. So it only gives you the content within the page. There can be some erroneous information that I could grab as well. And we don't want to confuse anything. So I'm just going to go ahead then in this while true statement, as long as there is an ID with the crawl status, we're going to check that and see if it's completed. If not, then we are going to just print out what the actual status is, and we're going to do this every 5 seconds. Then basically what we did before, we do a model dump, and then we could extract specific information here, but let's just make sure that this works. The whole idea whenever using async with Firecrawl is that you get this ID, and then at any point in time while it's scraping, you could check the job with this ID, which is what I'm doing. So I'm checking the crawl status here and I'm giving it the ID. So in this case, crawling takes a little bit more. I'm checking every 5 seconds. So it's going to crawl all these URLs, and in the meantime, the status is just still scraping. And as soon this will be complete, and then it's going to print out everything that that we get from scraping. And here you go. So here is all of the scraped information, just like we have, and we could just get the URLs just like we did and everything. Okay, so this allows us to asynchronously get all the information from quite a few URLs. All right, so for this next section, we're going to use something called LLMs text. This is going to give us ready knowledge to use for our LLMs. So like, what exactly do I mean by that? So this is a pipeline that converts any public website into a live agent ready knowledge base using Firecrawl and OpenAI. So this is helpful because it can take static documentation site, a blog or company page, and then we can have like RAG, for instance, on this, or we can answer questions about that website. This means that we can crawl a website, structure the content, vectorize or store as context, and then query with an LLM. Okay, so I have another file called 06llmtext.py, and the setup is just the same. We have all the imports, Firecrawl app, etc. Now, the next one is we're going to say results, or let's say LLM underscore text equals app dot, let's see, generate LLM text. And then we can give this a few things, right? We're going to say URL equals CrewAI documentation in English. And then we're going to say show full text equals true. And then we just want to print out this text. Okay, well, that's actually not true. Why is that? Because this is actually an asynchronous call. And what you could do is you could just print out the LLM text if you wanted to. But instead, I just want to show, I kind of want to make sure that that you can see how long it takes. So if the status is not completed, then it's going to print, else it's just going to print the status. Let's sleep every 3 seconds. And then that means we need to import that as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. This is, this code is not that complicated. So we're going to say Python 3 underscore 06. And then actually that was very quick, as you can see. So this basically took that whole page, that took maybe a second, right? It took the Firecrawl, or I'm sorry, CrewAI, docs.crewai.com. It took that, and then with LLM text, it basically converted this so that it's more readily available for an LLM to use, and then we can ask it questions, etc. Like we can do so much more with this information, but this is going to allow us to be more ready for an LLM to use this rather than just giving it straight markdown. This kind of formats it a little bit better so that you can get better quality results from the model. And you can use this with any public URL. This is actually one of my favorite ones to use. Right, that was fairly quick. I know that was a quick section, but also didn't take that long. So you can use that and we can scrape anything and then also convert that into an LLM ready text. So for the next one, which is another endpoint called map. Now this endpoint structures the results of a crawl into useful objects. So this prepares scraped data for downstream use, ideal for agent dashboards or RAG. This generates a site map-like structure with metadata. Let's go ahead and use a code example. And for this one, I just went ahead and created another file. This isn't much code, so I'm just going to kind of walk through this beginning part, the exact same, just like you've seen before. So then in order to map the website, we're going to say app.map URL. Then we're going to give it the URL. We'll just use CrewAI documentation again, but this time we're going to say include subdomains. This means that if there are subdomain links, that we can include those as well. So let's go ahead in here and take this map. We're going to print the map result and give us how many links that print out how many links that it found just from crawling docs.crewai. We can say Python 3 to go ahead and run this and say 07 underscore map. And let's see how many links we can find from this base URL. Okay, well, it already came back and said it found 171 pages. Now, you notice I put EN here for English because I think they also have, this isn't the only language that they had the documentation, right? So if I did all languages, this would be doubled essentially, or maybe more. But that's why I just have EN here for English and have it include all the subdomains. So these are all, right here, these are like all the URLs, right? So here's one Weaviate vector search tool. This is just random. So I can come here and just show you that, this is the actual URL. And if you're curious, CrewAI has updated documentation over the last year or so. And it's a lot, there's a lot more information on here. It's better. Even I think this feels like it's been updated Weaviate above. But anyways, yeah, so we have all of this, all of these URLs that we can then scrape these and then do something with them. And this leads us to our next endpoint, extract, where we can use structured entities. So this endpoint performs something called entity recognition and structured entity extraction from scraped or crawled web content. You want to use this when you want to automatically find and extract structured items, specifically like links, names, or organizations. So this means that you can give it predefined fields or your own schema using a pedantic model. So let's get right into the coding portion. And now I'm going to already have this pre-coded just so that we can see. I want you to really understand more of what's going on rather than just developing this. So again, the first part is the same. I have an extract schema. And then I have an extracted list. So basically from the schema, I just want to get in some information and a code example. And then I just want to be able to get a list of that because I'm going to be using more than one URL, which we'll get to right now. So this means that the Firecrawl app has a function called extract, which serves as the endpoint. So here I'm going to give it multiple URLs. So specifically, I'm going to use Weaviate vector search tool and Quadrant vector search tool. And I'm going to give it a prompt. Okay, so this is a little different. I'm going to give it a prompt this time. And I say, I need to get information from the websites and any code examples only from the URLs provided. And then I'm going to give it the schema. So this means that I should get a list of information and some code example and at least one code example for each of these URLs, which come from CrewAI's documentation. Then after I do that, I'm basically just going to use chat completions and then tell OpenAI that I want to summarize this and then end up basically putting this into a summary markdown file. Okay, so the important thing here is we're going to extract structured entities from these websites, and we kind of basically give it like a prompt like you would a model. So let's go ahead and run this and test it. I'm going to say Python 308 extract.py. Okay, so whenever I run this, it's not really going to print anything out. It should just basically, have another line in the terminal here, but it's going to populate a summary.markdown file. So we're going to open that whenever it's done, and then we'll look at the contents, and hopefully it's given us information and coding examples from the Weaviate vector search and the Quadrant vector search tools from CrewAI. Okay, and here is the summary markdown file. Now I have an extension to have a preview of this, so we can kind of better look at it. Okay, so it's talking about, it found the vector search and quadrant search, and it's giving me basically the information that I needed from that documentation, right? It's giving me, here's a code example with Weaviate. Here are some it's just kind of going into some information about Weaviate and what I can do. Here's about preloading documents into Weaviate. Weaviate is great, by the way, if you haven't used it. And then here is, finally, here's a CrewAI integration example. Okay, so then it does the same thing for Quadrant Search Tool. We come through here and we just kind of see everything that we need about Quadrant. Okay, and this is amazing because you can combine a bunch of these, so you can search for related sections on tools or examples or whatever, and then when it extracts, it can extract certain information from that, and then we can have, we can give that to OpenAI and it can do something for us. We can do more with that, but this is, I think, a really powerful tool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the async version of this, and there's something else that I want you to see. So this is pretty simple, right? That we get with this basic thing. We have an async extract. So I kind of want to search for all documents under this .dev/*. So that means all URLs under here, search for that. And then also just the firecrawl.dev website. But this time I have a prompt, but I have no schema. So if you don't provide a schema, it's going to create one for you based on your prompt. So it should give me something that just gives me whatever the company mission is and the features from those pages. Okay, and then because this is async, I just have a while true statement. So you can see here, it was processing 3 different times, and finally, I think by the 20-second mark, it was finished extracting. So if we kind of bring this up a little bit, okay. So if we look at, here's the data, right? So this is us doing it. So we have features. It's saying extract data from LLMs, scrape content. So this is just features from Firecrawl, basically. It got a bunch of these, and then the company mission here is Firecrawl is the easiest way to extract data from the web, etc. So it basically got information from all of these, and then it took the features and company mission, basically made that the schema. And so now we have a list of features, and we also have an overall company mission, probably because we only have Firecrawl .dev URLs, right? So, but it went through there, it extracted, it got its own structured output based just on our prompt, which is really cool. Okay, and now we have the search endpoint, which allows for natural language queries. So basically this endpoint lets us ask natural language queries over crawled content. This can turn websites into searchable databases without needing your own vector store. And this can perform fast Q&A, find relevant sections, and then also enable AI chatbots. So let's go ahead and code this one. Again, and being a dead horse here, but we have the same beginning part, and then we're gonna say, let's say search result equals app. Wow, that is not what it is. that is not what it is. And then we say query, and then this can be our query, like whatever we want to search for, right? So I'm actually going to type context engineering. This is something that I will be talking about very soon. I may have already talked about it by the time you see this. This is something relatively new. But then there are some parameters here. So you can always highlight, or you can actually go into the function, but we want to limit like the number of searches that we want to have. So I'm just going to say limit 5 for 5 URLs. And then you can go by like the country, location. There's quite a few things that you can do, but there's an important one called TBS. So I'm going to say TBS equals, and then this means, now honestly, I never looked up what this means. I know what it does. So basically when you say QDR W, this means only within the last week. If I was to replace the W with the D for day, it's only within the last day. And there are quite a few options here. Actually, if we come into search, I think it only has one example. Yeah, but it's kind of essentially like a time filter, right? So we can limit the number of searches, and then we also have a time filter for how long ago or over what period of time do we want to actually get the searches from. Okay, and then we can also have our scrape options. This time we want markdown and links. Okay, so then I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. I want to print the results. So it's, get the data from the results, and then just print this in a nicer format so that we can see what it's actually doing. So let's go ahead and run this. So we're just going to save it first. Always save it. If you see the white dot beside that file name up here where the X is, that means you didn't save it. And if you get weird results, then that's probably why. So we're going to call this 10_search, run this. And this will take just a minute to run, and we'll be back. Okay, I'm gonna bring this up here. Okay, so up here is where we ran it. So we have the title. The first one is how context engineering is shaping the future, URL description. Here is the content, kind of like basically the markdown. Same thing here, we have title, URL description. So this is another one. Here's another one. And then finally we have a fourth guide. So we limited to 5, but it only returned 4. That's okay. You can always increase that number. You might not always reach that number. I've noticed that you don't always reach the number, even though you limit to that. It just basically means you don't want to do any more than that. That doesn't mean you're always going to get that number. Okay, but I really like this because it did the Google search for me based off of a prompt, and then also, or off of, something that I wanted to search for. And then, I can also get the content from this, right? So here I just have it giving me the first 150 characters from Markdown, but it also gave me all the links provided from that, like within this, URL right here, that I'm sure that we would find these links inside of there, right? Which means that you can get more information from there possibly if you want to. Okay, so I think this is a really good endpoint. I highly recommend using this one. All right, so for this next one, we're going to take a step back. This is something really new that came out. I'm recording this July 5th. This just came out June 24th from Firecrawl. This is very new, but this is something called Fireplexity. This is an open source AI answer engine from Firecrawl. So we're going to come down through here. It's basically an open source Perplexity clone for developers who want to build their own custom AI search experiences. They build it to be production ready from day one. It's easy deploy, doesn't take very long. It's open source. It does use Firecrawl. So that means that you do have to use their API key. You have to have an API key to do this. But under the hood, here's what's happening. It does web search, smart content selection, streaming AI basically, using GPT-4 augmenting that as interactive citations. And then we even built in live stock chart detection for over 180 companies to show what's possible when you control the entire pipeline. Okay, so we are going to use this locally. So if I click on this is going to go to their GitHub, and this is Fireplexity. Instead of kind of going through this and seeing what it does, I'm not going to show you that because we're going to run it ourselves and you'll just see how that works. Okay, so what does this mean? Here's the quick start, right? I'm basically going to go through these. I'm going to clone this. So basically going to be typing in these commands into, we're going to be putting these into Cursor, okay? So I can just go ahead, you could copy all this, but I kind of want to show you line by line what it's doing. So we're going to first git clone this project. All right, so in Cursor, I'm just going to paste this. It's going to clone Fireplexity up here. That's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to cd into it. I'm just going to copy these. So now after we've cloned it, meaning we have that GitHub code now in any local project, and now we have open in Cursor. Now we want to change directory into that. And then we want to use this command npm install, which stands for node package manager. And that means that we're going to install all the libraries necessary to basically make this work. And while this is running, this could take a minute. Then what we need to do is we need to copy their .env example into a .env.local. So we're going to clear this. Now we're going to copy the example environment they have, which is saying that they don't have it. So let me see what they have. They might not actually have it. I think actually this was a mistake I noticed. So they don't have it. So we're just going to create your own. So inside of Fireplexity, the folder, you're going to create a new one called .env.local. Once you do that, you're going to basically put in your Firecrawl and your OpenAI key here. So go ahead and do that now. Okay. And then after you've done that, the last step is called npm run dev. So we just want to run the dev environment of this. Now this might take a second, but it's going to go to localhost 3000. So we're going to go ahead and open this up, and we're going to see what Fireplexity is. Now, one thing I noticed that I have a dark, maybe, I don't know if it's just mine, but I noticed that this is dark. So if I just kind of inspect this, let me see. Yeah, I'm just going to get rid of the dark background color because that obviously didn't work. Okay, cool. Text is there. All right. So what's the idea? So AI powered web search with instant results and follow-up questions. What are something that we want to learn about? So as I mentioned, context engineering was something that I want to search about. So I'm going to press enter. And at the bottom here, you can ask follow-up questions. But what it's doing here is it's saying there's about 6 resources. There's one more. Look, there's Cole with his. And when you come in here, then it's basically going to give you information about it. It's going to answer it for you. Even here, it says the difference between this and prompt engineering. While prompt engineering is focused on crafting specific prompts to elicit desired responses, context engineering encompasses a broader scope. It involves filling the context window with the right information throughout an interaction with the model. Okay, and I like that. So I can ask a follow-up question. Can you give me a code example? So let's see what this does. So searching for relevant sources. So off of what we've already talked about up here, it should be able to provide an answer, but it may have to. So it should know that I'm still talking about context engineering, but I want code examples of that. And then let's see what it does. Okay, it's a little. Okay, so it's not quite exactly. This is just a random code example for getting what if n mod 2 does not equal 0, it's printing odd. Like this is just an even odd. Okay, so I think maybe only these work. So let me come up here. If I just click on one of these, what role play in improving user experiences? Let's click this one. Okay, so if I click one of these that are related, I wonder if okay. So that's what it is. You have to click one of the 5 related sources as a follow-up question, and then so then that'll work. Okay, so then it does that. Okay, well, that's good to know. And I think this is pretty much what it is. I mean, this works really well. I'm curious. I think at 15. I am at 20. So let me see if I use it one more time. I just want curious how many credits this uses. Can you give me a code example of context engineering? Okay, so let's see how many tokens that costs as far as Firecrawl goes. Because again, for the free version, you have about 500. So let's see. Here's code examples of context engineering. I don't know if this. I mean, we'll see. I actually haven't seen any of these yet, so we're gonna see how this looks. Okay. We have a class with a bunch of functions inside of the class. This is saying the extract context method simulates processing an email to extract essential details such as sender, date, time, and participants for the meeting. Once the context is extracted, the scheduled meeting method uses this information to print out scheduling details. So it's saying that this extract context is going to get specific context from an email. Then when it goes to schedule the meeting, it's going to take that extracted context from the email, and then it will be able to reliably give that information to schedule that meeting. Okay, interesting. But this is pretty cool. So basically, you have an open source. Oh, and I want to see how much that took, right? So I was at 35 credits. Okay, I mean, that one only took 2 credits. So it was 2 credits to use that. And, this is all local, right? That took a minute or 2 to set up, right? If it takes you a few more minutes, that's fine. But it basically doesn't take long at all to set up. And this is pretty interesting to notice. I mean, this is pretty cool to have your own local kind of sort of bare Perplexity, Firecrawl. This is a nice open source, locally hosted, small Perplexity thing that Firecrawl is making. I kind of enjoy this. All right, for the next project, we are going to be using Firecrawl's MCP server. Okay, so we're going to use basically their API through MCP. So again, this is a server implementation that integrates Firecrawl for web scraping capabilities. It's all open source, and it's here on GitHub. There are a few ways to have the installation. The first thing is you're going to again need your Firecrawl API key, which you already have at this point. So we just kind of copy and paste that in here. But you can have a remotely hosted URL. You can run this with npx, or you can have your own, you can have a manual installation of it locally on your computer. But what I want to do is actually want to run this on Cursor, and then we can just kind of chat about things. So for instance, if I have, if I want to do things within Cursor and have something coded up for me, I can go online and search for things and then use that as part of the code. So how does this work? Basically, go ahead and copy this. Actually, you know what? Don't only copy this if this is the first MCP server you have. This is not the first one you have. Don't copy the whole thing. Just copy this part right here. Leave out the last two curly braces. Okay, so we're going to copy this. Then I'm going to open up Cursor. In Cursor at the top left, you want to go to Settings, then Cursor Settings. So this has changed a little bit if it's been a little while, but it's now under Tools and Integrations. You see, I already have it, but I'm going to go ahead and click on a new MCP server. Then essentially what I'm going to do, again, if this is your first MCP server with Cursor, just copy the whole thing that they had there. Go ahead, go back here and just copy this whole thing and put it, and you'll just paste it in here. But if it's not, then basically where your last one was, where that comma, you want to come in here, or let me do this way. You'll come in here and you'll paste it in just like that. I think this is saying something because I already kind of have one. So I had the same one, so it didn't like that. But stop giving me the API key. It's not the same one, but okay, so I have Firecrawl MCP. The command is npx. Again, if you're not familiar with this, basically, this is if you were going to execute this locally on your computer, you would say npx. You might not say -y, but you would say Firecrawl-MCP if that is, if that was what was on your local host. But essentially, we're going to give this an API key, and we're going to have tools available to us for Firecrawl, which means that it can be accessed by agents. We can use it with other IDEs, etc. It doesn't just have to be through code to call the endpoints. Okay, once you've done that, as you can see right here, right? If I turn this off, once you've done that and you saved it, you come back to cursor settings. It'll try to take effect almost immediately. It said briefly loading tools, and it says there's 8 tools enabled. If you don't get that, if you get like a red, see it at the file system up here, it has a red dot, that means something's wrong, right? There should be about 12 or 14 tools enabled, but I haven't checked those in a while. So go ahead and fix that. But if that's the case, just make sure spacing is very crucial here. If you don't have commas or you have extra commas, it's just very crucial to have the syntax very, very right for this. Okay. But anyways, if we come in here, you can see you actually see all of the tools available. And a lot of these are just the endpoints, right? So we have scrape, map, Firecrawl, Firecrawl extract, search, deep research. We didn't really go over that, but then also generate LLMs text. Okay, so now let's go ahead and try and use this. Okay, so I'm starting a new chat, and what I want to do is I want to search for best coding practices for Fast API. So then with those, I wanted to create a Fast API server with all the necessary endpoints and best coding practices. I'm going to hit enter, and let's see kind of what it's going to do. So now it does more of a planning type of thing within Cursor. So it says it's going to help me do this. And now you see it's going to call, using an MCP server, it wants to call Firecrawl search. So it's going to run that tool, something about Fast API, and it's going to go through all the steps necessary to get all the information first using Firecrawl to do all the web searching, which, you can use other things too, but I think that Firecrawl search is really powerful. Okay, and if you haven't seen this before, this is relatively new. I think Cursor just came out with this, but they basically create like to-dos now. So see, view all. So it's going through all of the to-dos. It went ahead and created a new Fast API scraper folder. So I guess it's going to kind of put everything in here. So here are models. That's what it's going to do right now. So it's creating the project structure, has the models. Here's the configuration, etc. So it's kind of going through all of this to-do list, right? This right here, like I said, this is new, but it's going through all this to-do list and then come out with something at the end. So we'll be back once this has gone through and created everything that I've needed. Okay, so it finished. It took a little bit, probably took close to 5 minutes. There were like a couple errors, so it took another 5 minutes after that to ask it to fix those, but it did, within just a few requests, it fixed those and everything was up and running properly. So it created quite a few things. I know that there's a routers, not very familiar with this. Fast API is a server specifically, supposed to be more lightweight for APIs. So it created a routers, meaning that basically all of the endpoints needed for, scraping necessarily for like scraping a specific URL, for instance, has like health checks. Then it has all the services needed, which in this case, when they have a Firecrawl service, it did things. I wouldn't necessarily do it this way. It doesn't mean that this could very well be a better way. It may be. It just looks different than the way I would normally handle things. But let's go ahead and test this out. They created a lot of things, right? Has something specific for the .env files. There's a lot going on here. You'll see this. I'll have this for you in the GitHub because I'm just creating this right now as I'm getting ready for this course. So I went ahead and ran this. It gave me what I needed to run, which was this up here. So unicorn for the server, source.main. That's where the main file. So source/main.py. We wanted to be able to reload. This is the local host and run it on port 8000. So I'm running this, and there's always so if I just do this localhost 8000, this works. I don't have like a front end for this, but this is a welcome to Fast API scraper. I can do a health check. There's a scraping URL, but let's just go ahead and go to /docs. This is standard for every Fast API. It has like a documentation, a Swagger, so that you can run these with some sort of UI, so you don't have to create it yourself. Like, this is great for testing. So if I do a health check right here, right? If I click this, click try it out, then I click execute. Now it's going to execute this. And, it's the response right here where it says response body. It's saying the status is healthy and we're connected with Firecrawl, gives the version and the timestamp. All right, so let's go ahead and scrape. let's go ahead and scrape URL. I'm assuming, it prepended everything with API v1, and then scraping / scrape. So let's figure out what we want to do. So let's do / docs.crewai.com. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute this. See if this works. I actually haven't tested this out yet, so you're gonna be testing this with me. And oh, it worked. Perfect. And we get the response. Anything within a 200 is good. But the message that was scraped successfully, here's the URL, and this is the actual markdown that we got. And it gives some more information. It basically gives all the metadata information, right? Like, I didn't do anything. I just had Cursor use Firecrawl's MCP server to look up documentation, the code that we had already written. So it probably went in and looked at everything. It created this whole endpoint for us. Now let's try another one. So we have a search one. So we want to search the web, right? So the query, let's do, I did something about context engineering. Let's do about latest OpenAI news. And then this will be QDRD. So within the last day. I think that is the correct one. This would be nice if it had that already. We could choose from it. Okay, so we got we got the response, search completed, 5 results found. So here are like the results, right? It found, here's the title, URL description, and markdown. So it's going through here. That's one. Looks like here's another one. Title, markdown, etc. Let's see. We're watching a brain drain in real time. Probably get some different views on all of this, but here you go. Not all of them are the best, right? Like MSN.com, I guess, is something is behind a wall, paywall, something. But then here's something from the AI Insider. So basically, this is great, right? We got, we didn't do anything. I had it create a whole local server for me based on all those endpoints from Firecrawl using Firecrawl's MCP server, which was able to retrieve a ton of information for us so that we could, create a proper fast API local server for us to use. And then now what you have when you use this, what you're going to have with this is your own fast API scraper locally on a server that you can use with some of the endpoints that we have already went over. Here's batch scrape, there's crawl, etc. Right? There's more you can do with this. I can even have it add more to this if I wanted to, right? But this is clearly all I need. You will have this whenever you get this information. But this was awesome. Thank you. And we have one more project to go. I'll see you there. Okay, so this is the last project, and we are going to do something relatively simple, but I promise you effective. This is a CrewAI automation where we're going to take some input queries, and then we're going to do some searching. We're going to summarize those searches, and then put them nicely into a file. And I just want to give you some free advice that if you can subtract from a client and you can provide them a solution, then it doesn't matter how simple it is. I'm doing something similar to this. I'm hosting it for somebody in the cloud. It's running 24/7, and I sold it to them, and it's providing a solution. That's all they cared about. It didn't matter if it was simple, it was complex. I just don't want you to be fooled by a lot of these things that you see in the YouTube space. You see on Reddit. You see on Reddit a lot too. Like there's some of these templates can be so zoomed out that you don't even know what the text is saying. You have no idea what's going on, right? But that just because it's complex doesn't mean it's necessarily good. It could mean it's good. It could mean that's actually solving a problem. But typically, if you see something that complex, it can be broken down into smaller steps. So I just want you to think about this. Like whenever you're creating flow, like automation flows, typically people are creating AI automation flows, not true AI agents. So whenever we're creating this, just think about that. Like if you just make sure that you can solve a problem for somebody and subtract from their life, meaning that they don't have to think more about it, then they actually think less, then you're doing something great. Okay, so with this project, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is you need to type in pip install u, if you probably don't already have it installed, but I just like to do that anyways, CrewAI, and then CrewAI tools. Okay, I'm already gonna have it installed, but so I already have the requirements, so it's gonna take a second. But for you, actually, as we're doing this, they had an update. So I waited a day, I'm doing this on another day, so that's actually kind of funny that they have an update. All right. Cool. So I had to eat my own words. So what we're going to do, this is how I'm going to show you how to set up the project, and then I'll just go over what I've already done. And you'll have this. So you'll just want to say CrewAI create and then flow. Then you can just name this whatever. So you can say fire. Well, I kind of already have that. So let's call this automated CrewAI flow. Okay, so this is the flow. Actually takes no time at all to make. Well, hopefully, unless it's going to make it lie out of me. Okay, so then whenever you do that, you come in here and you're going to get this is the main file. It already set up like a crew for you, the state, the flow, and just some methods. Okay, so I have a great course already. I'm not going to go over every little thing about this, but we are going to go ahead and go over what you will see. I just want to show you quickly how to set that up. But for the Firecrawl flow, like I said, I already have this here. In this file, there's a little bit more going on, right? But the first thing is, there's a Python library for Firecrawl. Okay, we've been using it. So we're going to use the Firecrawl app again. We're going to import our Firecrawl key. I have the Firecrawl flow. I pass in a state, which I just happen to have over here. I just have it in a separate, I kind of separated out the models for the state. It still works, but I just separate that out so it doesn't take up too much space, because I thought I might do more. You can add more models that way as well without clogging up the main file. So we're gonna have the first one is the query, right? So we're gonna have the you're gonna be able to input things to query to get this started. This was just kind of like a way to say, hey, this is what we're about to do. You can add more here. This is where you can maybe typically log things, or, modify maybe the input or something, make sure that it's sanitary input. Then we'll have a listener. So we're going to perform a search. We're going to do Firecrawl's search, which again is very powerful. I'm going to do it within the last week. That's like on this like time limited QDR : WWs for week. Then we basically take those search results, and I take all those search results and just grab some things from there. Okay, and then I attach that to the state. Then I want to basically summarize each of the URLs or the markdown of everything that we searched for. I want to perform a summary on each of those. So if we did 5 searches, I want to summarize each of those searches. And then I'm going to basically save that as markdown. The markdown code is kind of big, how I'm saving it, because you don't need AI. This is another thing. You don't need AI to do everything, right? I know what I'm saving. I know what I'm getting. I know that I want to save it. There's no AI involved in part of this. I mean, we can go into here. You can look at this yourself. The only thing I can maybe do is have the search results, the markdown file. But this isn't the prettiest, right? Now I had AI help me write this, but I also didn't. I don't have AI as part of this function. It's just Python code. Okay, so I just want you to know that as well. And I also have, have a utilities folder that I created to put this file, to put like this is a utility function to do something. I didn't imagine having, this is close to 100 lines of code. I mean, imagine having that here. Like this looks so much cleaner as part of the main flow, right? And then that's about it. And then whenever we go to run this, we are going to enter a query, and then you can limit how many search results. The default is 3. If you just press enter, then the default is 3. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run this and show you how it works. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this command right here, and then what do we want to search for? Oh, you know what? As I'm recording this, OpenAI just came out with their agent, with their OpenAI agent, right? So let's do OpenAI agent, because they just came out with that literally tonight, sometime today, but I'm recording this tonight. So let's do 5 results. Okay, so it's printing out. It's going to, let's see. Okay, let's come up here. What's happening here? Again, this is search, right? So it's already I'm already past where I want, but it's doing the search results. This is CrewAI's. This is the print statement. The agent has started. I do have a crew that's going to take all of that information and summarize it, which I think it's about to do now. But it's going to create the summary for all 5 of them, and it's done. I didn't even get to 3 results, 3 summaries. I don't know why. I don't know why there's 3 and not 5. I hope I don't have. I don't think I have it hard coded somewhere. That's okay. It's fine. Well, you know what? You know what, that should be fine. That shouldn't be it. Okay, so anyways, we'll come back to that. But what happened was, if we come through here, we performed all the searches. I didn't even get a chance to really go through that, right? But we came in here, Command J, we just printed out, we performed all the searches, and then we created the summary. And then down here at the last part of the flow, what happened? The flow execution completed. These are all the functions as part of the flow that we can accomplish. The last one was saving the search result. So let's go ahead and open it up. And then there's an add-on. There's a Markdown Preview Enhanced extension that you can buy. Or I'm sorry, wow, not buy. I would never buy an extension that you can download. Okay. Also, it did say the search limit was 5. Okay, but I don't know why the results was 3. But anyways, okay. So search results for OpenAI agent, and then July 17th. That's when I'm recording this. This will come out in a few days. But this is as I'm doing it, and it's coming like the key actions, dramatic news points. So I gave it. If you're like, I didn't really go through the prompts, but if you go through the prompts, I kind of had it. I had like structured output. So here like related links that it found with that. They unveiled the ChatGPT agent revolutionizing AI's ability to think and act autonomously. Okay, so then we go through here's OpenAI's. And then also here's their new, this is another one that's from a Wired article, right? So like the thing is, what you could do, I mean, this almost looks similar to kind of like a newsletter. You could re-prompt it. So you could also make this somewhat into a newsletter and use something that takes Markdown and converts that into a nice format for an actual email. But I mean, this is, like I said, this isn't anything crazy, but that worked out really well. I mean, that was really quick too. Like that was relatively quick to do those searches and come back with results. And this is how easy an automation can be. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Now understand, actually creating and developing is going to be different for everybody. That's fine. Don't worry about the skill level. I mean, I'm here to help you, right? That's what this course is, to help you. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. You're going to have access to all this code. If you need help with anything, let me know. And before I end this off, I have a school community where I will, I go more in depth about things throughout the week. I also have dev support days where I'm like literally helping people create their automation live, right? So I don't know necessarily what they all want to do, but they might have questions about certain parts or they want to do something. So we kind of go over what they can do. And then we kind of like fix them live, hopefully. I'm doing a pretty good job so far. We'll see. There have been a couple of times where I haven't been able to, but we figure out, but that's okay because we figure out what we can do about it, because sometimes you need to just maybe find a different approach. But either way, thank you so much for watching all of this. I'm going to have other course videos right here for you. Please join my school community. I also have a newsletter that you can join where you get updates every week. Thank you again for watching all of this.